everyone. I'm glad you guys are still here. I almost lost my voice last night. Was anyone else at the Bad Bunny concert? Woo! So I almost lost my voice, but I made it, guys. I made it. I came here to talk to you guys about the future. And as was mentioned, I am the type of person that's going to help you navigate the future and get there early. So let's get started. I kind of want to reframe your thinking about everything that's happening right now, because I feel like it's hyper-focused on AI. And I want to take you back to the time of Galileo, when he kind of changed how we view the world, right? He kind of figured out a few things that changed our perspective of who we are as humans in the world using technology. And we're kind of at that moment again, right, with the technology convergence that's coming around. A couple of things that I believe are true. I believe technology is converging at a record speed. I think most of you guys would agree. Suggest, yeah, most people would agree this, full stop. We're converging at a record speed. Most of the conversation you've heard here today, and I've been listening to some of the talks in the panels, is conversation around mostly AI. I believe that the conversation is beyond just AI. It's about convergence of many different technologies. I also believe wholeheartedly that the era of the smartphone is slowly coming to an end. It doesn't mean it's going to be here next year, right? What it means is that a lot of the companies in Silicon Valley and across the world that I work with are all trying to find a way to move you from a mobile phone to maybe glasses, maybe AirPods with cameras, maybe rings. I mean, how many of you here might be using a wearable like a smart ring? Some of you guys, right? So we're slowly moving into an era where maybe one device or several devices might change or might be adopted. Another thing that I see is that with the technology that we have at our hands right now and that is being worked on, the way we see the world is also changing, full stop. We're at that moment again in some ways that Galileo was at some point, right? Obviously, a lot of people were against what he was envisioning, what he was telling folks. There's a lot of stuff happening right now as well in how we change the world. A futurist doesn't necessarily do predictions, per se. They actually give you more of a roadmap, because I think that's a big thing that people ask me. What I will tell you is the following. Intelligence as we know it is leaving the screen and entering the physical world. I have spent the last 10 years of my career working on that. Then physical and digital reality are no longer separate. I think for an older generation, they see the physical world as the only world and don't realize that the virtual world is also part of the extension of someone's identity and reality. Show of hands, how many of you here have kids that are playing Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft? Some of you. We all work for those companies, right? I usually get a joke in this one. Because a lot of the kids are going to be asking you for money that then they can use to pay inside video games. And their physical and virtual realities are the same. And we are currently living inside this incredible, monumental shift. It's not just about AI. So I don't study the future. I actually have been building inside of it. Actually, right before coming on stage, I was talking to the crew, and someone asked me, what's the coolest thing you've gotten to do in tech? One of the coolest things I've gotten to do, and I get to do a lot of cool stuff, guys, I got to produce a virtual concert inside Roblox with 3 artists, making me, by the way, the coolest mom at school, but also gave me a lot of learning experiences. So when I speak to you on stage as a tech futurist, and you've probably had many futurists speak on stage, I'm speaking from actual real-world experience, not just theory. All right, so we can all agree also that generative AI is everywhere. It is yesterday's story. I'm not even interested in talking about LLMs. My work focuses on what comes beyond LLMs. Here's where things are going. Okay, and this is not from me. This is from Jensen Huang. You don't want to trust me. NVIDIA's CEO. He showed this a couple years ago at GTC, which is their big developers conference. And he shows it every once in a while, kind of the AI curve, where we were, where we are. So generative AI, we're going into agentic AI, and the promise is physical AI. I believe that a few people have mentioned physical AI on stage already. We are going to dive deep into it, but maybe in a way that you haven't heard it spoken about. Any tech speaker nowadays has to say agentic, so I got to have a slide that says agentic AI. Right? So I will say agentic so you guys can clap for agentic. But anyway, agentic AI obviously is the darling, the hype that everyone's excited about beyond LLMs. And I truly do believe agentic is extremely powerful because it plans, acts, demands, and does a lot of different things for you. How many of you here are brave enough and are using OpenClaw? Okay, so we got some brave souls. I do Claude Cowork because I'm not ready to hand everything over to my OpenClaw. But agents obviously are taking over. A lot of people are using them from a personal context. A lot more companies are starting to use agents in new ways. And we will dive deeper on my views on Agentic AI. What I will tell you, and this is a slide many of you have never, ever seen, but I think it's incredibly important. This slide, it doesn't say it down here, but this is from Niantic Spatial. And this is kind of how do we get to physical AI? You are going to need new models and new architectures. And that's what most people are not talking about or realizing. You cannot get to that promise and the curve of physical AI with just large language models. Obviously, you've got large language models, then you're moving into world foundation models. We're going to get more into that, and then large real-world data models, which are incredibly important. And as you go up in this pyramid, you start to see the data scarcity. Where is the future value of the work you might be doing come into? Where is the future moat? That's something I get asked all the time. Where are the future moats? So let's talk about world models. Okay, Dr. Fei-Fei Li, the godmother of AI, I am known in tech circles as the godmother of the metaverse. I know it's not sexy to talk about the metaverse, and I won't talk about it, but she is the godmother of AI. I'm the godmother of the metaverse, so I feel a certain kind of sisterhood with her. She's working on world models. Jan LeCun, who used to be at Meta running AI, just left and raised a $1.1 billion seed round. That's a seed round for world models. Everyone's starting to think about what is the type of data, what are the type of models we are going to need to power that next iteration. World models, in essence, pretty much do a lot of simulation and allow virtual agents and also eventually robots to be able to kind of practice something and get something called spatial intelligence. Why do they matter? Why do these world models matter? Why are people investing billions of dollars in this? Because it allows the robots to learn faster. It actually allows the agents to plan ahead, and it's going to allow them to have spatial AI, context, and understanding. The other model that most people have never heard of, and I know most of you guys might have heard of world models before, but most of you guys have not heard of geospatial models, at least not in this context. Once again, this is from Niantic Spatial. I think this is a fantastic overview of where the models and architectures are going, and hence where the investment will also go. Obviously, right now, everyone's focused on LLM investments, IPOs, everything that's happening in that space. Some investment is coming into world models. Some investment is eventually going to start to go further into large geospatial models for several reasons. If I asked any of you, if you wanted a robot at home, most people would say, yes, I want a robot. What do you want it to do? I want it to fold laundry. I want it to do dishes, right? Am I right? Yeah, most people believe it. If I told you, I'm going to give you a robot today, and he's going to be in the kitchen, and he's going to have a knife, would you trust that robot? Would you trust that robot to take care of your newborn baby? No. Why? Because right now, robots are not fully autonomous. And why? Because large language models still hallucinate. You need these newer models to eventually allow for almost zero possibility of hallucination or an issue when you're talking about physical AI. So geospatial AI is AI that actually understands the physical world, where you are, where you're located. It combines maps, sensor data, satellite imagery, real-time signals. It enables a true, fully multimodal metropolis. And it is the difference between AI that knows facts and AI that knows place. That's where large language models, as exciting as they are, don't understand place. So when AI knows where you are, everything starts to change. What does that allow you to have? It allows you to have new hardware, new devices like smart glasses. It allows for true autonomous systems. We right now, many of you guys might have a Tesla or a car that can drive autonomously, but not every car is driving autonomously. You're going to need a lot more data, and it's going to allow for true urban intelligence. This is another part where most people in the AI world or on stages are not talking about. It's neurosymbolic reasoning. You don't only need context, you don't only need understanding, you need reasoning. If you combine all of these things together, you can actually get to that future promise of AI. The screen, which many of us, and let me see, how many of you guys are on your phone? Because I mean, if you're on your phone, I'm not doing my job. The screen is no longer the interface. The interface is slowly changing from our phones, our computers, into the physical world, in new devices. You know, Apple, for example, is going to be launching AirPods with cameras that are going to be mapping the physical world on a constant basis to try to understand, yes, where you're located, where you're going, what your preferences are, what you might be looking at, what is happening in the world around you. Because every decade, or more so, like every 15 years or so, brings a new platform. We're going into this new era, and I know you guys have had people come here before and say, glasses are coming, or it's going to be the end of the smartphone. Not yet, but the shift is currently happening, and everyone is betting on it. Why are people, people are like asking me, why would we go into, why is Meta going into glasses? Why is OpenAI working on hardware? Why are all these companies focused on something like Google Glass failed? Why would they go back and launch glasses? If anyone's following Google, they have a partnership with Dental Monster doing some really interesting glasses. This is why. Because the moat, remember that pyramid I showed you? Data scarcity? All right. These devices are the differentiation. The moat is no longer just in the model, depends on the model. The moat will be on the hardware and on the data it can collect. If your device is constantly scanning the physical world, it's going to allow you to have that data to power these newer models and allow robots, allow holograms, allow the agents to actually do things for you and understand context. So it is a really important moment, and the interface won't just be glasses, it'll be on your body, it'll be all sorts of different things. That's where spatial AI, and I'm a spatial computing expert, where spatial AI comes in. All right, this is AI. This is a way to give AI understanding. It's teaching AI to understand the physical world. If you have a small child at home, you wouldn't just put your 2-year-old in front of the stairs and be like, good luck, go figure out how to do the stairs. No, you teach the child because they could die. That's where we are right now with robots and AI. We're teaching it to understand and navigate the physical world. Sometimes it doesn't do that well, sometimes it does really well. As a spatial computing expert, it's important for me to mention something, is that spatial computing, or the extension of computing into the physical world, is not just about hardware, because everyone's like, oh, VR. No, we're not talking about VR. We're talking about the next computing platform, hardware, software, information, data, connectivity. The conversation will slowly move in the AI context from compute, that's where everyone's focused. Once compute gets cheaper, new materials might facilitate it. Once that starts to move, we're going to move over to connectivity. When you're talking about millions, if not billions of people with rings, glasses, newer devices, robots, holograms, all these sorts of things, you are going to need connectivity that currently does not exist. Agents are leaving the chat window. They're starting to do things on their own, and eventually, they're going to be something that you talk to visible. They will be visible to you. Right? That's where I think a lot of people always focus on humanoid robots. Well, it's also about giving the agents bodies. They are the nervous system of this era. In order for you to get to that physical AI curve at the end, you need agentic AI that is more developed and becomes the nervous, kind of like the nervous system, the tissue that connects. Okay, if anyone's traveling to Silicon Valley, this is what everyone is craving, physical AI, physical AI. I hear this all the time, that's what everyone wants to talk to. So in order for us to get to physical AI, you need to have world models, you need to have geospatial AI, you need to have neurosymbolic AI. You need AI that can see, act, operate in real-world environments, not just in virtual simulation spaces. That's where robotics and embodied intelligence come in. And it's also about holograms. All right? And I'm trying to go as fast as I can. I have a lot to cover. I think the question right now that we as humans need to ask ourselves as we change our worldview is not so much, what can AI do for me, which we are using it for great things, but who are we becoming while we use it? Are we using it to become smarter, more productive? Are you using it for, therapy? A lot of people are. What are the consequences of that? What does that mean in the context of who we are as humans? So I think most people need to start really thinking about AI as that co-creator. My favorite example is that the future is less Ready Player One, Remember, like VR headsets, escaping the world because it's horrible, and more like Jarvis, where you're actually wearing some type of glasses or some type of display where you're working with the AI to co-create. And that will allow us to have physical AI in the long run. This demands a lot of things from leaders. You need to upskill and remain always curious. I know it's really hard, but you have to be curious all the time because things are changing super fast. You have to have a builder mindset as well. You have to be able to have teams that can build up and spun things quickly. And you need to ask human questions. I see so many companies laying off people because of AI with the excuse of AI. Maybe it is AI, but you're not thinking, you're thinking, many of these CEOs are thinking next quarter, not next quarter century. Ask yourself, with AI, how does my purpose change? If my job is eliminated today, what is my purpose? What is my identity as a human? I'm no longer the center of the universe, right? And what does it mean with intimacy and belonging? Are you using AI to get away from having real relationships in the physical world? Building inside the frontier looks very different than it used to. Oh, they're cutting me out. Building inside the frontier is actually really, really hard to do. Can I go to the slide with, let me just go to this slide. I'm going to leave you here. I want you in your mind to think about 10 years in the future. Who is in the portrait of your family? Is there a robot? Is there a hologram of someone that passed away? Is there a clone dog? I want you to picture that because the future that we're going into might look a lot like this. Thank you.